Hi, listeners, and welcome to episode 4 of Wind Therapy, a podcast dedicated to women motorcycle riders, why we ride, what we ride, and our backstories. Information and education from a wide range of riders with varied experience and levels of riding ability, both on and off the road. This show is for all women riders around the world to inspire, motivate, encourage, and empower. This amazing lady we're talking to today had a great amateur surfing career and won her first open national title when she was just 15 years old. This qualified her for the world amateur titles in Japan in 1990, which, after a lot of training and determination, she was lucky to win first place. Following that, she had shoulder surgery before turning professional. She competed for a number of years before retirement, having won one event in France, ranking 6th in the world. She's always liked adventure, horse riding, motorbike riding, keeping fit, and was very much an outdoor person with a strong push on for getting lost, or was it that she didn't know how to read a map? Riding in the mountains and setting a line reminds her of the lines she took in surfing and the focus and attention necessary to know her limits. I'd like to introduce you to Kath Newman. Some people still call her Kathy, but that was a long time ago when she was a professional surfer. Kath, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really, really excited to talk to you. A lot of people in the biker world that I know aren't actually aware that my first job was in a surf shop. I grew up down in Jervis Bay and worked for Aquatique for quite a number of years. Met my husband through the surf shop, and after him persisting for a very long time for me to go out with him, I finally said yes. I did say to him, though, I am not going to be seen with an esky lid rider. If I will get absolutely laughed out of town, but I'm glad I did. We've been married 27 years, but we actually met when I was working in a surf shop. So I'm just so excited to talk to you because it's an amazing part of my youth as well, growing up in that surfing scene. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thanks, Neen. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Jarvis Bay, South Coast, great waves. I'm so glad that you met your husband through the surfing community, much like the motorcycle community is very close-knit. It's tight.
It sure is. Yeah. So 15, that's really young to qualify for the World Amateur titles. What got you into surfing? Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
Well, we used to live in Sydney and Liverpool, so the western suburbs of Sydney, and my folks decided to move to the North Coast where we used to holiday every summer. And, like most cities, it's hard to bring up kids when there's a lot of stuff going on. So we moved up when I was, I think, just before I was 8. So I really wanted a horse for my Christmas present. And my dad said, I won't repeat what he said, but I can't remember. But, he basically said over my dead body, so under the Christmas tree was a foam surfboard. And so at 9, I started to surf.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, yeah, what an awesome present for Christmas, getting that surfboard under the Christmas tree. What did you think when you saw the board instead of a horse?
Well, I knew I wasn't going to get a horse, but we had moved up to kind of Port Macquarie area, and most weekends we'd go to Lake Cat Eye and just hang out at the creek there or the river mouth. And Dad had a board that he used to push my sister around and myself on. So we learnt how to stand, not in the surf, but just Dad holding the board and us getting a bit of an inkling about balance and technique, getting to your feet. And then after that, that was it, really. And then we just went off into the ocean when we moved to Bonny Hills, maybe a year after or a couple of years after we moved to Port Macquarie.
Thank you. That's a lovely story. So How did you get involved in the professional side of surfing? Did someone find you? Did you enter into competitions?
Yeah, so just a local guy noticed me in the water, and this is really early on. I might have been 11 or 10 or something, maybe only a couple of years under my belt. And then I was at school, and there was like some school stuff going on, like school state titles and board riders. My dad helped set up Bonnie Hills Junior Surf Riders Association, or maybe not Surf Riders Association, but Bonnie Hills Junior Board Riders. So it was more of a community thing back then. But, you know, my sister also, who was older, we both surfed, and we just really enjoyed it. And there was just events going on all the time. There was a women's movement back then that was massive. And unfortunately, you know, it got all folded in with the men kind of in the late 80s. And so, state titles and all these, women's focused events were then kind of like, blended into the men's, and the men's just said, no, I used to ride a kneeboard at the state titles for women. It was just like, whatever you want to enter into, just go for it. So, and then back in the late 80s, it was the late 80s. It all kind of like we got sold out to the men, and I don't want to say that with lightly, but the women's movement. The women's movement finished.
So different now, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long were you a professional surfer for?
So I actually toured the world, the European part of the circuit when I was an amateur. And I also did Hawaii for a couple of years as an amateur. And so probably like when I had my shoulder surgery, because literally like you couldn't turn professional, you couldn't accept cash. So any prize money you couldn't accept as an amateur, because then that would qualify you as professional. So I competed for maybe like 2 years in professional events like Bells Beach, and there was Manly, and there was Wollongong, and I think I went to France a few times, and Hawaii, all as an amateur. But I couldn't accept any of the prize money because that would have deemed me as professional. So I basically like had my world titles, had my shoulder surgery, and then I turned professional in 1991, I think it was, after I'd recovered.
Okay, there you go. Let's get into the motorbike stuff and what you're doing at the moment in your life. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing for a living these days.
So I work for a local council as a labourer in horticulture. So I work at the Botanic Gardens. Like making things look really pretty, making things grow, maintaining. I think, I'm not so sure about the size of the Botanic Gardens. It is quite small compared to some. But I do all the mowing and all the maintenance of the plants. I've just today, like this week, I've been doing all the pathways with deco, and so I get around with a tractor pretty much all day.
And I suppose where you are in Queensland there, outdoor activities are all year round. So you've got people coming and going all the time. Do you have any downtime at all, or is it all just, getting things ready all the time?
It's just maintenance. It's just making things safe and approachable for. I mean, we've got a lot of people who like taking photos of the wildlife and the flowers, and then we've got people with disabilities and their carers that come through. So it's just giving them the opportunity to access areas that look nice.
Lovely. Oh, that's great. In regards to your motorbike riding now, one of the things that you mentioned when we first caught up was the time that you spent surfing. When you're riding, it sort of reminds you about setting up those lines when taking the curves on a mountain, and just feeling that in your mind, setting that up ready to have a really good ride. How long have you been riding motorcycles for?
I first got my license when I was in my early 20s, but I feel like, most of my riding's been in the last 10 years. So, I'd like to kind of incorporate my, older, when I was in my early 20s into now, but I feel like now is really relevant. I rode in Sydney, had an old SRV. No, it wasn't then, an SRV 250, which I love. And I used to ride with a guy, putty road a lot, and that was really fun. But I feel like most of my experience has come from the last 10 years, and
Yeah, okay.
particularly travelling around Australia. That was a highlight.
Yeah, so you did that on a bike?
Yeah, I did. I decided that my working life, I was just in service of others all the time. The four languages of love, and I'm the in service of others. So I feel like I had a bit of a relationship breakdown. I'd moved to a new town, and something wasn't really kind of sticking. And I was like, what's important to me? And the whole wildness, being wild, adventure was something that I thought was a good time. When you have a bit of a breakdown, it's like,
Yeah.
bugger it, I'm going to go and buy a bike, and I'm just going to do something really wild and crazy because I can.
Yeah, finding yourself again,
Yeah,
and that meaning, and that wind therapy.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So, so you started riding pretty young, when you're in your teenage years, and got your license in your 20s, and you've been around Australia on a motorbike. And I absolutely resonate with that comment about, doing most of your riding in the last sort of 10 years when you're in your 40s. I think you sort of realize at that time in your life that you are who you are, and stuff everybody else who doesn't like who you are. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to find myself. But by doing that, you're able to give to others, I think, better, because you know yourself, and you're confident in yourself, and you're able to really pick that right person to give your time to. That's really resonates with me. So,
Mm.
what got you into motorbikes? What's your first memory?
Uh, my first memory was meeting my first boyfriend, and he had a bike, and he had a dirt bike. So we used to travel a lot. We used to travel a lot, and me on the back. So his family, I lived at Bonny Hills. His family lived up in Thora, which is just west of Coffs Harbour. And so we used to go visit his family often and go horse riding, which was my other passion. And so that was kind of like my first memory. And he said, "Would you like to learn how to ride?" And I was like, "Yeah, that would be great." So we went down this back section, not quite in the bush, but a back street of where we lived, and he put me on the front, and his feet were going to be the stabilizers for this bike. And he goes, "Okay, so this is the clutch, this is the accelerator, and so what I want you to do is let the clutch out really slowly, and then slowly open up the throttle, and then we should be able to roll off." So, of course, I let the clutch out, didn't put any throttle in, stalled, and then we ended up dropping the bike. And so that was my first memory. And he got up, and he had like this brand new DR 600, and he said, "I don't think we should do that anymore." So
Well, give me my own bike.
yeah, that's
Oh
right.
dear. Oh, that's a nice memory to have, though. Even though it didn't end the way you wanted it to end, it's still, I mean, first gear. Whenever you're learning to ride a bike, first gear, oh my goodness, doesn't matter what
Yeah.
bike you're on, getting that feeling and working out that first gear is different on every single bike. And I think it's quite funny watching people learning to ride and letting out that clutch for the first time because they have no idea what it's going to be like.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
right.
well, that's funny. Thank you. Um,
Pleasure.
in your life, what inspired you actually to get your license?
Well, at the time, I think I was late teens or something, or maybe early 20s. I'm not 100% sure now, but I'd heard that there was going to be this stay upright course coming in where it would be like a day or a 2 day skills riding thing to get your license. And I was like, well, there's no hell. Well, to be honest, I mean, I couldn't afford to do a skills training course to get a license. So I thought, well, I'll just better borrow somebody's bike and go and do it the old school way, go to the RTA and just get put through the skills. And that's what happened. I borrowed a friend's bike. I went up to, I think, a car park of a shopping centre in Coffs Harbour at the time. I practiced my emergency stops. I think that was really, I don't know, there wasn't that much to it back then, but the day that I went, it was pouring down with rain. And the instructor said, okay, I want you to go straight ahead, go around the roundabout. When I drop my arm, I want you to do an emergency stop, and then we'll take it from there. And that's what I did. I went down the road, around the roundabout. When he dropped his arm, I did an emergency stop. He said, come inside, and that was my license completed. It was like, unreal.
That was pretty easy. Yeah.
But, to be honest, I actually didn't really know how to ride. But
Was talking to somebody today actually about that. So I live in an area where if you're 100 kilometres away from the closest RMS or place to do the stay upright course, you don't actually have to do it. You can just go in, do your learner's test, get your license. And she said she did that and she'd never, ever ridden a bike in her whole life. And she said, so does that mean now I can just go and ride a bike? And they went, yep. And this is recently. I actually made my kids go and do the learners stay upright course. It was pouring with rain the 2 days that they did their course. And my poor daughter, she's probably going to hate me for using her as an example today, but she's got an awesome GS 650, a BMW adventure bike, which was supposed
yep,
to be
nice.
mine. But the day I got it, she went, I'm going to start paying it off. It's going to be mine. So I went, oh, okay. So she recently went for her P's and took her bike to go and do her P's course and test. And the poor thing, like her bike was twice the size of all the other bikes that were being ridden on that day. She did the ride okay out on the road, went back and did a test. And of course, big 650 adventure bike failed.
Yep. Oh.
And I honestly think I would fail on my bike. I don't think I could do those little twisty turns in the witches' hats and the really tight U-turn without putting my foot down. My bike's a big bike, and
Yeah.
she's just set up to fail, which was really sad. But she's gone back since and hired one of their bikes and passed without a problem. But
Yeah.
we live in the country. A small 250 bike sharing a highway with trucks.
Yep.
It's too dangerous. And I actually was talking to my husband about it. We were thinking maybe we need to get a smaller bike for her. But I said, no, I don't want her on a smaller bike. She can't get out of danger. It needs to be heavy on the road because she's sharing it with massive big logging trucks and B doubles. And so, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed for her. But being my daughter, she's very stubborn, very resilient, and just went back and did it again. So, yeah, very proud of her. So I think there's a time and a place for that type of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's funny, you dodged doing it. Good on you. That's a good story. Um, Tell us a little bit about the bikes you've owned and what you're riding right now.
So the bikes that I owned, when I lived in Sydney, I had a Yamaha SRV 250, which I found in old school, like pre-tech, in the bike sales, and I went to, I think it was Parramatta, and looked at this bike, and I fell in love with it. So that was the first bike that I'd actually owned, and I had that for a couple of years, in and around Sydney, and then I kind of like left motorbike riding for a long time, and just life happens and priorities change, and then I moved to Murwillumbah in the Northern Rivers in New South Wales, and I thought, you know what? I said, I've got this bike license that why don't I use it? So I went out and I bought a secondhand bike, a Yamaha FZS 600, so a phaser, and I rode that for a couple of years. I think I did like 20,000 Ks in the first year. I was like so excited to
Wow.
get back into it again. And then after that, I bought, which was when I decided to travel around Australia. And it took some time thinking, like logistically, like how am I going to do this? Am I going to drive? Am I going to ride? I had all these ideas. And then I thought back to when I was in my mid-90s living in Sydney, and I was living in Bondi, and this bike rode up my street, and it was a red TRX 850, and it sounded so nice. And I thought to myself at that time, that's the bike that one day I will own. So when I decided to travel around Australia on a bike, I started searching for this TRX 850. So that was the next one that I bought, and that's the one that I did 30,000 Ks around Australia on.
So what drew you to that particular bike?
Just the sound.
Yeah.
Purely the head turning, like what is that? It didn't look particularly nice. It's not a nice looking bike, but there's something about it that's really unique, and there's a bit of a cult following with them, probably more now than 8 years ago, or maybe not 8 years. I can't even remember when I I did around Australia, 2015. So yeah, 8 years ago. But it's just a fun bike. It's a bit, it's just a head turner.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like a nice sounding bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So currently I'm riding a Triumph Street Triple, 2009 model. It's got the bug headlights. I'm very old school. I like my retro kind of looking stuff. It's light, and I'm short, so it just it does what it needs to do for me.
They are a beautiful bike. Yeah. I sat
Yeah.
on a oh crap, now I can't remember the name of it. That's terrible. A beautiful Triumph bobber looking bike the other day, and I sat on it and went, "Oh no, this is so nice."
Yeah. Yeah.
But the Triumph really do know how to make a bike, and they are beautiful bikes. Yeah. Nice. Do you
Absolutely.
still have
Yeah.
your TRX 850?
I do. It's currently in storage because we're renovating, but yeah, I took it up to the Rocky Nats last Easter in the show and for the street parade, and but yeah, she's pretty much under a cover now. There's some pretty crazy new, well, in Queensland now. We used to be quite cheap to have single seat rego, but now insurance premiums have gone up because there's been a few too many accidents. So now it's quite expensive to have two bikes on the road.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah, but yeah, she's still she's my first collection.
Nice.
If I'm a collector, she's the first bike that I'm going to collect.
Very good. Yeah, I'd like to be a bike collector. I think my husband's
What would you
probably
have?
sweating. Oh, and anything and everything I could put my hands on. We've got husband's doing up a 94 Dominator at the moment with the
A
hope
Honda.
that,
Honda.
yeah,
Yep.
with the hope that I will be able to ride it with him in some adventure bike type scenarios.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a bit big and heavy, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got a beautiful big 1200 BMW adventure bike. We've got my
Yep.
bike, my daughter's bike, a quad bike. So I think I'm pretty much a collector already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I hope you
getting
must
up
have a
there.
big shed.
Absolutely do. Yes, absolutely do. We could fit more in though. I'm sure we could do that. Yeah, got a plan. Got to aim for something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
never enough, there's always not enough room for what you want.
Maybe we not. Please, my husband, I hope he doesn't hear this. Maybe we need a bigger shed. Terrible. Um, do you maintain your bikes
To an
yourself?
extent,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to an extent. I do. Obviously, like before every ride, I'll go over the bike and I'll clean it. I think, doing your pre-starts, which is all it sounds a little bit work related, but it's so important to be able to look at your bike, check the chain, make sure that things look like they should look, and I mean, I change the oil, and I just do lots of cleaning. So anything that, I mean, I'm pretty mechanically minded. Um, Obviously when I traveled around Australia, I had a couple of hiccups here and there, and it's just really understanding whether or not something's fuel related or electrical or just like maintenance. So yeah, to answer the question, not as much as I should, but I'm super careful about making every day that I ride that it's not going to be from me.
Yes, yeah. Oh, look, I'm the same. My bike's chain driven, so I make sure that I've, the night before I look after the chain, and when I get back, like you said, wash it, go over everything, make sure that everything's where it should be and that there's nothing missing.
Yeah,
So important
yeah,
to do that. Yeah, thank you.
yeah,
You've
yeah.
already
Pleasure.
told us that you've bought your dream bike, your Yamaha TRX 850, but if you could have any bike, what would you have and why?
Well, there's one bike that stands out, and it's the MV Agusta F4. So I don't know, there's something about the Italian
Mm,
design and the Italian kind of, it's very sexy. It's,
mm.
for those who probably don't know it, it's red and silver fairing in a straight line, but it's a single swing arm. Uh, then they range in cc's. I think they started at 750
Mhm.
up. Um, yeah,
And
but
you keep it in your
there's two
lounge room, I
bikes.
hear. If you had one, you'd park it in your lounge room?
Yeah, I would because all these like super sport bikes, they're like, I'd need platform shoes
Mm,
to get it off the stand. So, I think there's something to say about Italian styling that is really looks like artwork.
mm. Are you talking about
And
bikes or men? Sorry, that's terrible. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't know how to
Sorry.
answer that question.
Uh, that's okay. You don't have to answer that one. Oh dear. I get being tall though, like some of these beautiful big bikes, you've got to be like 6 foot plus to be able to ride them. I'm only 152 centimeters, so you're
Oh,
tall for me.
oh my god! Oh my
So I'm
god!
only little. So the platform bike shoes, bring it on. I would
Yeah,
still probably slip over and drop my bike even on those because I'm pretty clumsy. But yeah, well, beautiful big sports bike. Why can't they make it a little bit lower to the ground for us short people?
I know. It's so frustrating. I
Mm,
was on a ride the other day, and there was a lady, and she had just a Yamaha R6, current model,
mhm.
and I was like, oh my god, can I please throw my leg over to see if I can get off the stand? And of course, everybody says you drop it, you own it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, okay, sweetheart. So of course I throw the leg over, and I couldn't get off the stand. I'm like, okay, that's another one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very, particularly if the style of riding that you like. Um, I'm not sure. Where are you at 152 centimeters? Are you cruiser?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I had a sports bike, I would probably kill myself. That sounds terrible as well. But no, a cruiser because yeah, the balance, the center of gravity of the bike,
Mm.
I've got to be able to maneuver it, and the taller bikes are just too top heavy for me.
Mm.
Once I lose it, I lose it. And I just don't have the confidence with those sorts of bikes. So definitely cruisers for me. Um, but open to different options as they may appear. You just never know what might come up that's not a cruiser style that would be perfect. So,
Yeah, I think Triumph street triples are now in a shorter leg height.
okay, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So, where you are now and the bikes that you have, what kind of riding do you do?
Well, mostly it's just commuting to work, but apart from that,
Mhm.
uh, yeah. Look, I love to travel. I like to tour. Obviously, I'm north of Brisbane or just in North Brisbane, so the mountains are very close. So I like to do a lot of mountain riding. But yeah, touring's my thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep, setting up, hitting the road, not for just a couple of hours, but a few days, few weeks, few months, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
investing the time and really enjoying it. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's grounding. It's
yeah.
kind of like connecting to the bike and yourself and
Mm.
your environment.
Well, this
Mm.
beautiful country that we live in has so much to offer. We're
Mm.
really lucky, and it's so safe. Like when you think of other parts of the world, we are so lucky here in Australia. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the lucky country, blessed, totally blessed.
Absolutely, and especially up where you are. My best friend lives in Brisbane, and I go up at least once a year. And the last lady that I interviewed in the podcast here, Ma Gomez, she's from Brisbane as well, and it's just a really lovely spot to be. So we're definitely doing some riding up there next year. We've got a trip planned, so we might be able to catch up in person.
That would be fabulous. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah. Um, Now, the next question, a few little things. So, tell us about the proudest, funniest, happiest, or scariest moment you've had as a rider.
Wow. There's a number of them. I'm just going to scroll through my answers because it's like it changes every day, right? So,
No worries. No worries. All good.
well, probably the proudest moment was when I decided to do my around Australia trip. I left from the Wollumbar,
Hmm.
and so I guess on the biggest scale of things, like was returning to that same address that I left from, even though I didn't live there anymore. Was just to say, hey, I've just done this like 2 year epic adventure, and I've returned to the same place I left. That was probably the proudest moment, and also doing it solo. So I had no support. It was just like jumping on the bike every day and pointing it in a direction. So that was
Wow.
probably I don't know if it's the proudest or the funniest or the scariest. It probably encompasses all of that.
Mm.
But I was also very good at running out of fuel. So, and that's probably also encompasses depending on like whether or not you're totally, you know, focused on
Mm.
getting, time, a time sensitive person, have to be here at this time, have to be there at that time. It's going to take me 2 hours or 4 hours.
Hmm.
I didn't have that. So, yeah, I generally not very good with a map.
What an adventure.
It was.
I'm in
Yeah, it
awe of
was.
that. That would be the scariest moment for me, I think, is going out on my own for that long. But the resilience and the confidence that you would build doing that is just mind-boggling. And I would be so proud of you for doing that. Um, it's just an amazing thing to do. Yeah. Wow.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, there was a lot of people saying, what, you're on your own. But, probably the scariest part was, I'd gone out to Narrabri and I'd done a little bit of activist work out there, and I really wanted to go further west of New South Wales before I dropped into Victoria. But the scariest part was the bike was so loud that the birds flew out of the trees. And I thought, well, if I have an accident on any of these roads, but having a bird fly into me, and end up in a ditch somewhere, no one's there to drive past. So I decided not to travel any further west in New South Wales. But I do remember when I left Carnarvon in WA to head to Darwin, I hit an eagle flying off a carcass. And it's quite, because there's such straight lines in WA, and I could see it, maybe 500 metres ahead. And, you're not sitting on 90, 100, 110, it's very good visibility. And so I saw this eagle and I thought, oh, it's on a carcass, it'll be okay. Maybe and you don't know what direction they're going to fly in.
No.
And, of course, it flew towards me and into my bike, and I clipped the eagle on my left side fairing, and it cartwheeled into the dirt.
Wow.
So that was probably the scariest moment. But, yeah, I mean, I've had lots of fun times.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's a big bird. They're massive big birds too. Yeah, and that's not the first time I've heard of a similar experience. But wow, yeah. That's actually, I'd love to do that ride. It's on my bucket list to go from Adelaide up to Darwin. Would love to do that one day. Yeah.
Yeah,
One day.
you've got to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. We drove it last year, just up to Alice Springs, and it was just, I saw all the people on their bikes, and I kept saying to my husband, I want to do this on my bike. And he's like, yeah, as if. But no. He would be my biggest supporter, absolutely, for sure.
He'd be jealous if he said that you couldn't. I'm going to do it on my own.
Yeah, he probably
You're going to
would.
look after the kids?
Yeah. Oh, no, the kids can look after themselves now. But he'd be like, no, you wouldn't do it on your own. And I probably wouldn't do it on my own because, I just, I don't think I would have the confidence to do that. But you never know. But I'm absolutely in awe of you doing it. I think that's just such an amazing thing. And yeah, what an adventure, and some of the stories that you would have about that trip. I would, love to spend a bit more time with you. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
But I must say though, out of all of that adventure, the thing that I missed the most was shared experience.
Yes.
So, if your husband, you've got to do it with somebody else. There's one thing about going, yeah, I've done it on my own, but,
I've been there, I did that.
Yeah.
But having that person to talk about that experience, yeah. Oh, very good. So the furthest you've ridden was when you rode that 30,000 kilometres around Australia in that 2-year trek that you did. What other big rides have you done?
Well, probably that's it. I mean, I didn't need to do 30,000 kilometres. It's not 30,000 kilometres to go around Australia, but I got a little bit sidetracked because I didn't follow a map in New South Wales. So I did 10,000 kilometres before I left New South Wales. But I do love an adventure. So I packed the back of the bag, or the back of the bike, and I'll shoot up the coast or out west. I ride a lot with some Facebook community groups, some overnighters. My folks are still down in Coffs Harbour, so I ride down there. And my best bike buddy, lives down in Karamba. So yeah, I mean, I probably don't do as much touring as I want, but I just love the idea of it.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty more time.
Yes.
And what would be your dream ride?
Well, I mean, I lived and did a ski season in Mount Hotham a few years ago now, and I've just thought to myself, and a few people have done it, they've gone to Phillip Island for the MotoGP, they left Brisbane, and they've done every mountain range between here and all the areas, like the Victorian High Country, the New South Wales High Country, and all the mountain ranges on the north of that. So, and I helped somebody, or I didn't help. I tagged on along with somebody and did the Oxley last year. So I just think parts of the road I've done, but that would be my highlight, to do every mountain range between here and Phillip Island.
Well, I'm in the Snowy Mountains, so you're welcome anytime. And my hubby does the Phillip Island run every year with a group of guys. Apparently, it's only boys allowed. So anytime you want a companion to do that ride, absolutely happy to come along.
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Yeah, thank you. So I suppose we're getting to the end of our conversation now, which is a little bit sad, but tell us a little bit about what riding has taught you about yourself.
Well, I mean, it's definitely taught me that I'm capable. I think there's this stigma with women that they can't do something that's, I don't know, a little bit male dominated.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's that. It's like, I'm capable. I'm not going to let anybody tell me that I can't do it. And it's also about being free and wild, and it's my permission slip to freedom. I mean, it is like the quintessential, like, if you've got somebody says to you, "Oh, you're a little bit titchy," and it's like, go and get on your bike and go for a ride. It solves so many kind of like things in your brain that we can't get from just sitting down and watching TV.
Yeah, well, you have to concentrate on what you're doing, don't you? Because one tiny little mistake, and you just have to forget about everything else and focus on what's in front of you.
And that's right. What's in front of you. I mean, just like surfing, it's you've got to know where you're going.
Yeah.
The terrain's always different. The surfaces are always different. The level of traffic, both on the road and the ocean's different. But, it sends you on this kind of like course of meditation sometimes.
Yep.
It can be really, depending on the mood that you're in. If you want something that's a little bit edgy, you go do something that's a little bit edgy. If you want something that's a little bit cruisy, to unwind, unpack, it's really, for women, I think it's really important that they do it anyway.
Yeah, and there are so many women support groups on Facebook, like Gorgeous Ladies on Wheels, and She Rides Her Own, and East Coast Female Riders. They're all really welcoming and supportive girls that, if you have no experience, they'll take you out, they'll look after you, they'll give you that confidence. But if you have got that experience, it's an avenue for going to, join in on a ride, go on a trip, go on an adventure, whether it's a day ride or a trip away. You meet like-minded people that are supportive and mostly supportive, and can really help you fill that cup with riding. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. What tips or advice would you give someone who's a new rider or someone who's wanting to ride?
Tips for a new rider. Well, for a start, like, don't let anybody tell you that you shouldn't do it. I feel like, people's fear of you being hurt challenges your happiness. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm going to go and get a bike and I'm going to go riding, and it's like going, oh, but I'm afraid of you dying. Don't let somebody else's fear deter you from doing what really might bring you so much joy. And like you said, all those online community groups, like, there's such a really important number of groups out there that can, that creates safety, that creates this like beautiful, I don't know, a flower of I can't think about what I'm saying now, because it's like, I mean, we don't need negativity. And I think that, I just think that women should just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Thank you. Kath, it's been so great talking to you today, and I love your stories. I love the advice that you've given and the experiences that you've shared with everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully we'll get to catch up again soon.
Thanks, Neen. Appreciate it, and have a
No
great
worries.
day.
You too. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends. If you or someone you know might like to be part of Wind Therapy episodes, email windtherapypodcast@yahoo.com. Special thanks to Megan Peacock for the awesome Wind Therapy illustration, and to Zoe Francis for her technical support, direction and production of this podcast.